Hello, this is Ashley Danielle from ashleydanielle.com, your psychic intuitive manifestation mentor. I want to talk about something that I've talked a little bit about in the past, but it's coming up a lot with my clients and even myself in the work that we're doing in manifestation, in creating change in your life, in your world. And that is grief. And I'm like, immediately, it's like, who wants to talk about grief? Who wants to go into thinking about positive changes and deal with grief? And why is it important? If you are disconnected from your emotions, like most of the people that come into my world start out being very disconnected, it can be a challenge to fully receive your desires. So, for example, if you were desiring to call in money or you were desiring to hold more money, it can be nearly impossible to receive and hold larger amounts of money if you are not processing your emotions and your feelings in your body. I was going to say in real time, but like also from the past, you just don't have energetic capacity to hold it, right? And I can hear somebody being like, well, that's stupid. That's not true. That's fine. You don't have to believe me. But if you're here and you're listening to this, then, I think you'll understand when I get to the end of this. So what does it mean with energetic capacity, emotional capacity, right? It's like if you're so full and your body is so full of past trauma and so for me it's like stress, right? So I got that and I'm like, this is for you too. It's like I know. Um full of stress and trauma and just like holding on to a lot because you don't process, you don't feel. So what does this look like? So I had a client, well, I have had a number of clients like this, but I'm thinking of one in particular. And I would tell her, you need to start to drop into your body. And she's like, I don't know what that means. Like, what does that mean, right? As a coping mechanism, many of us have learned to disconnect from our physical bodies through dissociation, through other coping mechanisms, right? Where it's like you don't necessarily feel the sensations in your body, or you feel them, but it doesn't trigger anything, right? It's just like I don't know why they want me to say this, but it's just like a lot of women will, like, if they have to go to the bathroom, they'll like hold it because it's not like the connection isn't there, right? Like, oh, I drank a lot of water, I need to run to the bathroom. And it's like, no, what I'm doing is more important. Like I'm disconnected from my body in that way. And when you're disconnected from your body, um it's really difficult to receive and hold more because it will feel so uncomfortable because you just won't understand what to do about it. And then your brain is like, your brain, your subconscious and your conscious is like, this is uncomfortable. Don't love it. I don't, like all of the patterns come up. It's like the beliefs, it's like, I'm not good enough. And who am I to have this kind of money or this kind of love or whatever it is? And it just stops. And like, you'll just push the money away, push the love away in whatever your flavor of that is, right? So, I've said this before. If you win the lottery and you're like, oh, I want to have $1 million, and then you win the lottery and it's like you just spend it all because you just can't hold it. And two, like a lot of my clients, when they come to me, they'll start by getting raises at their jobs like instantly, but then the bills go up, right? Or like their spending goes up and because it's just not comfortable to hold it. So it's not just learning to call in, learning to create, learning to, quote unquote, manifest. It's more important to do this inner work of learning to hold, to have the capacity to hold. And a big piece of this is learning how to process grief. And the problem, I don't want to say it's a problem, but it can feel problematic, is when you're so disconnected from your physical body that you don't process emotions and you're holding on to it. You'll have years and years and years, probably decades of grief and anger and sadness and all of the things to process, right? And so it's like, okay, so I don't even want to do that, right? Like that sounds awful. And when you're first starting out, it does sound awful and it does probably feel awful because you're not used to doing it, but it does get easier. So I want to talk specifically about grief in a way that I don't think most people understand or think about grief. When you're specifically in this work, trying to co-create, trying to change your life basically and have things go better and be the version of you that gets what you want, knowing that it's harmonious with others and making the world better. Oftentimes you will grieve the person that you used to be or the how do I want to say this? But they're like, just keep talking the way because it feels disconnected sometimes and then it comes back. So what I was seeing was like grieving the past versions of you and what they had to go through. So like if you had something traumatic happen as a child, it's like grieving that and grieving the version of you that no longer exists. I mean, I believe that they still exist, but somatically they won't exist not as charged as before. And so there's grief that comes along with that because it feels like you're having to let go of somebody that you love and care for and that you've spent your life protecting without even knowing that you're doing it right through the coping mechanisms and grieving that loss, that sense of loss. So the way that it something that I said when I was like deep in the healing work, like I'm always in the healing work, but it was like if I'm not constantly running the patterns of coping from things that have happened, then who am I and what the fuck am I going to do with my time, right? Like if I'm not constantly over analyzing and being in hypervigilance and worrying about the future, then what am I going to do with my time? And there's grief that comes with that because it's like, oh, I didn't have to actually do that my whole life. And oh, like all of this, uh, don't love saying some of this stuff, but we're just going to say it. It's like all of the time that I feel like now I've wasted on this worrying and like all of this stuff. Like I'm oversimplifying it to help it make sense, but it's like there's grief in that. There's a lot of grief in that. And they're like, there's regret in that too, right? So how do I process the grief? Well, one, I let myself cry. And this is something my clients too, they're like, oh, I don't want to cry, right? Like the type of healing tears that you cry can leave you feeling exhausted, emotionally drained, and like you just want to sleep for a week. And that is how you know that you're clearing, right? Like that is how you know that it's quote unquote working. Cry, right? Like cry. And so okay. I am somebody that was raised not to cry and like crying shows weakness. And so this was something that took me quite a long time to get behind and like allow myself to do. And I find that's true with my clients too. It's like crying is a waste of time. Crying just shows that you're weak. And it's like, no, it's releasing trapped emotions. It's releasing this grief. It's releasing the shit that's just weighing you down. And when I started to, well, there was things that happened in my life where it was like I couldn't not cry. It just felt like it would never end. Like the tears would just never end. And it's like the sobbing, right? Like the tears that just rock your whole fucking body. But what happened was the more, I don't want to say like I cried all the time, but the more that I allowed myself to be comfortable in the uncomfortableness of perceiving myself as weak for crying and sobbing, it moved through, right? And so now I've gotten to a place, and most of my clients have gotten to places where it's like, yeah, it's okay, right? Like I feel like I'm gonna have to cry. Doesn't mean that I have to cry right now. Doesn't mean that I have to process this right now. I can be like, ah, we're not doing this now. But then you have to dedicate time, even if it's 5 minutes, right? So it's like in the shower, put on a sad song, a song that like gets you in the feels and allow yourself to release. And so what you're doing is it's like you're so full, full, full. If you allow yourself to feel the emotion, feel the grief, you like let the steam off, right? Like you let some of the pressure off. So then when something good happens, it's like not you have space and room to actually receive it and hold it. And this is true too for other emotions and feelings like happiness and joy. Like, can you allow yourself actually to feel it? If you are somebody that is disconnected, it is probably really difficult for you to actually fully immerse yourself and like soak in and bask in the good feelings too, which is problematic because then it's like something good happens, you don't allow yourself to fully receive it. And so it just like goes, right? It's so the visual that I'm getting, I'm going to share this because if you haven't learned this about me, I'm really weird. But so we used to watch this show. Whatever, I'm assuming not everybody has seen it. Gold Rush, right? And so they show like how the shaker, like the big shaker box works, right? So you like put the dirt in and then it like the water runs down. If all of like the things are full, the gold is just gonna wash down, right? And so that's like the visual that they're showing me is if you're so full of shit, I didn't mean that like that, but you know what I mean? Like if you haven't processed your emotions, if you don't allow yourself to be present in the moment, feeling, processing, moving through, holding yourself in, all of the good stuff is just it'll come. You are always manifesting and creating, but you're not going to be able to hold it and receive it and use it in the way that you actually want to because there's just no room. And so starting to like, like I'm gonna have a cry session or I'm going to my favorite is during workouts, specifically like kickboxing, allowing the emotion to come up and just bah, 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 right? Like releasing it, allowing my body to let the wall down enough to just let it out, right? And a lot of times after that, I will be completely exhausted because it's like the physical exhaustion, but the emotional exhaustion, which is it's like I don't want to be emotionally exhausted, but it's not a forever thing, right? It's like the more you do it, the quicker you recover type of a thing. It's the same thing with working out. The point here is most people will stop when it starts to get to this uncomfortable point. Most people are like, I don't want to feel, not even consciously, right? Like it's a subconscious protection thing. It's like, no, I want the money to come. They might learn to receive the money, but then they don't learn to hold it. And so they're just like, whatever, and give up. And this piece of learning to hold yourself in your emotions, specifically the grief. And the reason why grief, I think, is so, so important is because it's sneaky, right? Like you might not even notice that you're doing it. The last thing that I want to say about this is sometimes, and this is something that I find specifically with women, not that it doesn't happen with men, but most of my clients are women, where it's like we don't want to let go of old patterns and beliefs because we believe that they are the connection to our parents, people that we love, grandparents, right? Like people that have taught us these things, maybe inadvertently. And it's like, that's my connection to that person. So if I let that go, then I'm letting the person go, which is not true. It's not true. But that's the way that a lot of us view the dysfunctional connections to people or like ancestors, that type of thing. And if I let this go, right, like even culturally, if I let this go, I'm saying that this person was bad, or I'm saying that the way that society operates is wrong and bad. And it's like, then I won't fit, then I won't be relatable, right? Like all of these different things. Allow yourself to feel the feelings of this, whether it's like for me, and I see this a lot too with my clients, is like the adult version of me is like, no, no, I get it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I logically get it or understand it. The inner child version of me, my body is like, no, I don't want to lose access to this part of me because it's a part of me and all of the things. So, all of this to say, allow yourself to feel. And if you don't know how to allow yourself to feel, it is okay to get help with this. It makes it so much easier and so much smoother and so much quicker when you have somebody that can like walk you through this and hold you in this. And if this is you, I would love to support you in this. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below and I will come back and either make another video or answer, respond. Yeah, so have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, night.